They don't negotiate. They don't forgive. Humanity has just finished you off. The defeated emperor hung limply on Kalunka's shoulders as he addressed the council chamber. 3 men in simple gray uniforms stood before him. They bore no flag, no coat of arms, just a small insignia of earth on their collars. They had come under a flag of truce. The Karens began with promises of peace talks, and when our councils met with them, our leaders fortified our cities. But do you know what they did? Kalunka's voice seethed with barely contained rage as uneasy murmurs rippled through the rows of alien delegates. They bombed our capital from orbit, he spat. Before we could even collect $8 million for shields, 8 million lives were turned to ash, all because a human cargo ship was destroyed in a border clash. A misunderstanding. His face, wrinkled and aged, betrayed no emotion, but his words were heavy with anger. They were so enraged they slaughtered millions of our people for the loss of a few dozen of their own. What kind of species responds with such ruthless precision? As Kalunka paused, suffocated by his fury, a deathly silence fell over the room. The human representative stood up. His movements were deliberate, his footsteps echoing ominously as he approached the central podium. With hands resting firmly on the stand, he gazed out at the assembly. "Ambassador," the human began, his voice calm, yet commanding. "When you attacked one of our cargo planes, you didn't just destroy property. You killed fathers, brothers, sons, families. And humanity doesn't take that lightly." Karen laughed bitterly. "So you annihilated our fleets, razed our colonies, and slaughtered our people. For what? Revenge?" The human's gaze didn't waver. "No," he said simply. "Because we could." The silence that followed was suffocating. Karen's teeth clicked nervously, his bravado faltering. As he opened his mouth to respond, the human raised a hand, silencing him. "Our history is written in blood," the human continued. "We've fought each other for millennia, over land, ideology, and resources. It has made us effective. Survival is our only goal, and mercy is a luxury we cannot afford. When you killed our people, you didn't just declare war on a nation. You awakened a species bred for conflict. And we don't stop until the threat is gone." Karen's claws scraped the podium as he leaned forward. "You're monsters," he whispered. The human smiled faintly. "In a way, you're right. We are survivors. And when you threaten us, we ensure you never have another chance." Memories of a shattered empire flooded back to Karen. He had been there when the first human fleets arrived, ships designed for war, tearing through defenses as if they were paper. The ground invasion that followed was merciless. "You burned our cities," Karen said, his voice breaking. "Erased entire worlds. For what? Revenge? A show of force?" The human shook his head. "To ensure you would never harm us again." Karen's legs buckled as he gripped the podium for support. The weight of his empire's ruin pressed down on him, a beacon of strength reduced to scattered survivors and ruined worlds. "You call yourself civilized," Karen said, trembling. "But what you did wasn't civilization. You didn't just fight us, you ended us." The human's gaze was unwavering. "You're right," he said. "We're not civilized. And yet, Mr. Ambassador, your people still exist. What's left of them? If we were the monsters you claim, you wouldn't be standing here." Karen felt a flicker of anger. "You're trying to justify genocide." "No, Ambassador," the human said firmly. "I'm explaining survival." Karen's vision blurred as his lips trembled with rage, struggling to find words. The human turned to address the rest of the council. "Let this serve as a warning. Humanity does not seek conflict, but we will not shy away from it if provoked. And if you harm our people, you will pay the price." The human delegation nodded in unison and retreated. Karen, chest heaving, stumbled back to his seat. He had come here to rally support against the savages of Earth, but now he realized one chilling fact. Humanity didn't need allies. They didn't need a reason. They had already won. As Karen sat, another human rose. Younger, broader, with a faint scar across his cheek, his movements deliberate as he approached the podium. "I'm Captain Vance," he began. "I was an officer on the Hyperion when it all started." Karen froze at the name. The Hyperion was etched into the annals of his people's despair, the flagship of humanity's Fourth Fleet. When your fleet attacked our cargo convoy, Vance continued, your ships led the orbital bombardment of our colonies. Karen clenched his fists, struggling to suppress his fury. They didn't just destroy the ships, Vance said coldly. They broadcast it. Sent us footage of our people dying in the vacuum of space. Your commander even sent a message. This is what happens when you cross us. The council chamber buzzed with unrest as Karen's scales tightened involuntarily. You thought it would break us, Vance said, leaning forward. But you underestimated us. Within hours, we responded, not with diplomacy, but with overwhelming force. Karen's teeth clicked nervously. You thought humans were like you, Vance continued, that we'd play by your rules. But when you target civilians, you don't just fight governments. You fight all of us. And we don't lose. Karen's voice trembled as he muttered. It was a message. A show of strength. Vance bowed his head slightly. And we sent one back. How are you? Karenka felt a surge of anger. You destroyed my people, he snapped. Entire worlds wiped out of existence. Is that your idea of proportionality? Vance's lips curled up, possibly into a smile. We do not believe in proportionality. We believe in removing threats permanently. Karen held her breath. The words had gotten through. No malice, no emotion. Just a simple statement of fact. Your empire is not the first. Test yourself as Vance continues to address the committee, which will not be the last time. But let me be clear. When you come to us, you do not get to dictate the terms of your existence. Karen rose to his feet, his anger boiling over. You call yourselves protectors, but you're nothing more than predators. You didn't just defeat us. You hunted us. Vance's eyes narrowed. We protect our people, and you attack them. Everything else is just consequences. Karen's voice shook with anger. Resting under the weight of those words, he had seen the reports and heard the screams over the communications. When the human soldiers charged through the Tan cities, they took no prisoners. They negotiated no negotiations. They simply ended the resistance, but it was not their brutality that haunted him most. It was their efficiency. They didn't waste anything. General Valen said in his last communication that his voice is shaking. Before they could win, Kalunk watched as the Admiral's signal faded to static, and his flagship, the pride of the Thun fleet, vanished in an instant. You are destroying our fleet. Karen says they destroyed our colony and left us nothing, and now you sit here lecturing us. Karen's survival Vance stepped back, folding his arms. You still don't get it, do you? Karen glared at him. Juan said that his face was twitching, which was not about survival. It's about deterrence. We don't fight wars, so when we fight wars, we do it to make sure wars never happen again. The hall hummed with low whispers. Vance turned to address the council directly. He said that some of you think we are too dangerous, but our methods are extreme. You are not wrong, but ask yourself. Would you rather have us as allies? Or the enemy? The room is silent again. Karenka's paws tightly grabbed the edge of the seat. He will argue. To shout them down, but he couldn't. The humans weren't just stronger. They were smarter, faster. Their way of fighting is unique in the entire galaxy. Mark my words. Vance said this is not about conquest. We don't want your territory, your resources, or your conquests. There is a second chance. Karen's scales trembled involuntarily. He had come to this council hoping to gain support against humanity, to expose their atrocities, but now, sitting in the shadows, he realized something terrible. Humans not only won wars, they ended them. Karen sat motionless in her seat, her claws trembling against the smooth alloy armrests as the humans resumed their positions, their silence as nervous as their words. The Galactic Council room remained silent, the usual hum of quiet debate replaced by a suffocating tension. No one dared say that Karen's mind was troubled. He had underestimated them. Not just their ability to destroy, but the methodical way they had ravaged his empire, every attack, every blow calculated for the people. They did not fight wars for honor. They fought to finish, his lips quivering as he turned to address the council. He had one last chance. To convince them to unite other species to fight this existential threat. He began with the words, "You have heard their words. You have seen their actions. This is not a peace-seeking species. They thrive on annihilation." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Karen pressed on his tone. "Desperate, they talk of survival, but what they truly crave is dominance. Look at everything they do with my people. Our fleet has been cut, and our world will not be able to live. They didn't just destroy our defenses. They targeted food supplies, communication centers, and medical centers. They ensured that even those who survived would suffer." He slapped an itchy hand against his seat. "Do you think they stopped by sewing? Do you think they will not win your sights next time for your people? The people do not want coexistence. They will stand alone and bury anyone who challenges them." The murmuring grew louder. The delegates shifted uneasily. Karenka dared to hope that his words would soon reach the ground, that he might yet encourage the council, but then the elder left-hander spoke again. Ambassador Roth stepped forward. His gray eyes swept the camera. "You are not wrong." Ambassador Karenk Roth said. Karen froze for a moment, stunned by the concession we made. "Target your infrastructure." Roth continued. "We crippled your supply chains. We ensured that what little was left of your war machine could not be rebuilt, but let's not pretend your people were innocent victims." Roth gestured toward the assembly, his voice growing sharper. "The Turan Empire wasn't a benevolent force. You enslaved weaker species, and you strip-mined worlds for resources, leaving nothing but barren husks. Behind you, you expand through intimidation and conquest, hunting down those who cannot defend themselves, and you think we are easy prey." Karen's face twitched. He could feel the other delegates on the steps now that the wave of sympathy was dying down. Ross said as he approached the podium, "Talk about pain, but what about the pain you have caused? How many kinds of tagging about grace? When you tear their fleet, their city burns and claims that their planets are your own planets. Karen claws dug our future armrests. You were building an empire on the backs of the weak, and when you finally picked a fight with someone stronger, you couldn't handle the consequence." Karen's vision blurred with rage. He rose from his seat, pointing a trembling claw at Roth. "You think you're better. You think your methods make you righteous." Roth's expression hardened. "We don't claim to be straight. We claim to be alive and intend to stay that way." Kalenki opened her mouth to respond, but Rose interrupted her. His voice rises. "You call us monsters for what we did to your empire, but tell me, Mr. Ambassador, when you enslaved the Britannians, were these monsters going to resist when you burned the Nurix colonies? They are monsters to fight." Karen in his mind. "The difference between us and Earth said we were not starting the wars, but we are convinced that hell would end them." A hushed chatter broke out in the hall, and as the delegates turned into another heated debate, Ross let the excitement subside before continuing to address the council. "In general, let me be clear. He said that people are not interested in conquest. We have no intention of expanding our borders or imposing our will. All we want is to live in peace." Karen scoffed. "Peace? You called your actions calm," and Rose turned to look at him with cold eyes. "No, I think they're necessary to rally the galaxy against their barbarism," but instead they had turned his own words against him and exposed the hypocrisy of his empire's actions. Roth returned to his seat, his demeanor as calm and composed as ever. Captain Vance leaned over and whispered something to him. Roth nodded for a moment, and then the chamber was quiet. Then a voice broke the silence. "We have a suggestion." The speaker was an Ithrael ambassador, their crystalline form refracting the light as they raised their species. They are known for their neutrality and role as mediators in countless disputes, and considering the events described today, the room turned to them expectantly, and Hitler began. Clearly, the actions of both humans and Declan had far-reaching consequences. "We propose the establishment of a new protocol, one that ensures future conflicts of this scale can be avoided." Karen scoffed at a protocol. "Do you think the humans will abide by such agreements they don't respect?" Diplomacy. Roth's gaze turned to Karenka. "We respect the action, Mr. Ambassador. If you want our cooperation, you must work hard for it. Yet such an agreement could serve as a framework for resolving grievances without resorting to violence." While bitterness welled up, he could see the writing on the wall. They fear them, more importantly, respect them. If it means breaking protocol, then the ethereal rays must tilt their heads, their light refracted in a gesture of approval. Karen looks at people, and his hatred is brighter than ever. They cut his empire. They are now here, but there is no doubt that he screams and criticizes the expression, but he knows that it will not change people. They do not need to confirm.